It's hard to summarize all that happened on my trip in such a short time. You may not realize it, but many of you were serving with me in Peru through prayer and support as I helped Buddy and Lauren Fitzgerald share the gospel with the Yini tribes. The Yini are a native people that live in the Amazon jungle in the southeastern corner of Peru, near the borders of Brazil and Bolivia. They speak Spanish and also speak their own native language. Over the course of the week, we traveled to 6 Yini villages along the Las Piedras River. The total span of these villages is about 100 miles as the macaw flies, but because the river winds back and forth, the travel distance easily doubles to more than 200 miles. Santa Teresita is at the lower end of this stretch, and at the upper end is Monte Salvado, the farthest village we can legally travel to along this river. There are only 8 total villages over this distance on the Las Piedras River, and only the village of Lucerna can be reached by road. All the others must be reached by boat or by air. At the base of the river is Puerto Maldonado, the main city where the Fitzgeralds live and have planted a thriving church. Buddy and Lauren Fitzgerald have been praying for a local pastor to take over this church so that they can move to Monte Salvado and start working full-time with the Yini there. They are praying that the Lord would open a door for them to move there someday, and that another missionary couple would join them in the work. This trip was such a blessing in many ways. It was an intense week and a half. The enemy was hard at work, but I got to see God prevail in getting us through some tough trials. From leaving at midnight during the worst snowstorm we had this season, to having to deal with a frozen sewer line when I got back home, this trip was a battle. Everyone from our team battled airplane travel issues. On the last leg of my flight to Puerto Maldonado, I was supposed to arrive with 4 other people, but as I glanced around the plane, I didn't see anyone from my team. The other 4 team members that were supposed to arrive with me were delayed. I was the first to arrive, so I started working right away on getting the supplies and medicines sorted so that time would not be lost. There are 28 people in our team. We have 6 nurses, EMTs, and paramedics, 3 general doctors, 1 dentist, 5 non-medical team members, 4 evangelists, Segundo, our boat captain and his family, along with Buddy and Lauren and their 3 children, Joseph, Isaiah, and Abigail. About half our team is American, and the other half is Peruvian. Just to fill you in how things work on these trips, when we arrive in a village, we set up a medical clinic in one of the community buildings there. People lend us chairs and tables, and we also bring some of our own. The people go through several areas when they come. The first is registration, where we get basic information about the patient. The next step is triage, where the patient's vital signs, weight, and reason to see a doctor are recorded. From there, non-medical team members like myself guide the people between vision, the dentist, or the medical doctors they requested to see. After they see all the doctors, we take them to an evangelist, where they are given a clear presentation of the gospel while they wait for their medications to be filled by a pharmacist. We are a small team, and the people come in slowly, which helps. We work until everyone is seen, which may be late into the evening. After the clinic, or sometimes early in the morning, we have another evangelistic service. Segundo, who is the first man from the Yini tribe that Buddy led to the Lord, and who is also a leader among his people, share the gospel again with the people during the service. Many of you may remember the song I sang in Spanish before this trip. I sang that song several times during this trip to encourage and help reinforce the gospel that was presented to the people. The people are always grateful and welcoming and show their gratitude by giving us food. On Monday, we normally start out on our 5-day river trip, but the boat had a few mechanical issues. It needed a new impeller, which was going to delay us 1 day. This all worked out for good because our last medical doctor was also arriving Monday after dealing with several flight connection issues. He almost turned around and went back home because he was so discouraged. Instead, we rented a boat and did a day trip by traveling 45 minutes and holding a clinic at Santa Teresita, which is usually the last village we minister in. This way, we would not lose a day because of the boat repair, and it allowed our last medical doctor to catch up with the team. On Tuesday, after the new impeller was installed, we loaded 3 vans and drove 2.5 hours to Lucerna, the only village on the Las Piedras River that has road access, and where Segundo was waiting with the repaired boat. As we left the port in Lucerna and began our 8-hour journey to the next village of Santa Alicia, we discovered the boat motor had a cooling issue and was overheating. On Friday, after we finished seeing all the villages and were returning back to Lucerna, where we would say goodbye to our boat for another year, the motor finally quit working altogether. The good news was, Segundo told us there was a jungle path near where the motor quit, so we let the motor drift back 50 feet to that point. We only had to walk 1.5 miles to Lucerna. Segundo also hoped that the boat wouldn't overheat if we lightened the load. Buddy and Forrest got off first and ran to Lucerna to get another boat to help our disabled boat. There were a lot of beautiful plants and fruit on our walk through the jungle. I think God allowed this to happen to show us that He was carrying us the entire trip. That motor could have failed at any point during our trip when we were hours away from any village. It was nothing short of a miracle that it failed next to a trail that was only 1.5 miles away from our final destination. That was definitely a result of your prayers for us. Sophie, one of the church ladies from Puerto Maldonado, who is also studying to be a missionary, came to me all lit up because she led Grace to the Lord, who is one of the ladies in this video that she hugs. In all, we saw 209 patients and had 43 professions of faith, 10 of which were children. One of our patients was Ruben, a Yine man from Tepixca. Tepixca was the last village we visited on our trip. He got cellulitis in his foot, and because there was no medical care in the villages, it got so infected that it needed surgery. We took him back with us to Puerto Maldonado so that he could get it operated on. Some of the other things I did were run patients between doctors, help set up private exam areas for doctors to see patients, made stairs using logs and wood I could find laying around so that patients could enter the clinic, help wire lights to connect to the generator so that we could work at night, and make drinking water for our team by filtering rain or river water depending on what was available. We all carried things to and from the boat as we set up or tore down the clinic. As the saying goes, teamwork makes the dream work. Teamwork is also God's plan for a body of believers. Beside all the struggles with this trip, the Fitzgerald's house is being threatened by an 80 to 100 foot deep sinkhole that is only 50 feet from their house. It keeps growing every time it rains. We are praying that it does not get any closer to their house so that they can keep this house for other missionaries or visitors. The government does not plan on addressing the sinkhole with any type of repair for another 2 years. To be safe, they temporarily moved into the church parsonage in Puerto Maldonado. They are also working on building a new, but smaller home on some land that was donated to them 15 minutes outside of town, but it won't be ready until November. Some of the other blessings were giving out Bible tracts as I traveled to Peru and supplying the evangelists with New Testament Bibles donated from our church. I also befriended Roger, who sat behind me on the plane to Puerto Maldonado. It was his first time on a plane, and he wanted to make international friends. I guess I didn't look Peruvian, so he singled me out. We connected on Facebook, and I told him I help missionaries tell people about Jesus. I gave him information on how to connect with a church in Puerto Maldonado, where he could find more international friends. I'll leave you with a quote from Charles Spurgeon. "If there be any one point in which the Christian church ought to have its fervor at a white heat, it is concerning missions. If there be anything about which we cannot tolerate lukewarmness, it is the matter of sending the gospel to a dying world." Missions isn't just going to a faraway land. It is also going to our neighbors around us. That is why I love the sign above our church doors. When we leave here today, we are leaving prepared to enter the mission field. Let us be laboring in God's vineyard until He comes or calls us home.